When I get an idea for a soundtrack, there are several things that I have to consider. In listening to music, first off, I have to consider who's singing. So that'll be our first item on the list of considerations. So depending on who is singing, whether it be a choir or an ensemble or a soloist, I have to determine the key. I found an arrangement of this song on the internet, and after listening to it, engaging the meter, in other words, the amount of beats per minute, the meter is running quarter notes equaling 78 beats per minute, or 78 BPMs. I've decided that I want this song to be a soloist, a female soloist, backed by our church choir. So, having made that decision, I'll write that down. Being that I know this particular soloist and I'm familiar with her range, I've decided to put this key into the key of G. The next thing is to create a chord chart. I'll do that now. Now that the chord chart is finished, I can lay down the basic piano track. Now that we've got the piano part laid down to give us our sequence, the chord charts are finished, so I was able to put the piano part down. The next thing that I normally do is put in the rhythms, and in order to put in drum rhythms, I have to create drum patterns. This first pattern that I'm going to create, just to give an example, but it would take too much time. Nobody would want to watch this video for the amount of time that it would take. Just to give an example of a drum pattern, just one drum pattern from this song. Starts out at the beginning where you've got the toms. And that gives the first part of those rhythms. The next instrument that I would put in would be an acoustic guitar. That's the sound of acoustic guitar. And of course, when I take it to the computer, I'll blend the sound a little bit better with the arrangement after I get all of these sounds and patterns and everything to the computer. Right now, everything is being recorded to the piano itself on an onboard sequencer. One of the next instruments that I would put in would be the bass guitar, and I'll just give you an example of the bass. One of my favorite things to do is the strings, and you're not going to be able to see the keys, but I'll move up an octave and you'll hear the sound of the highest strings. And in combining all of these instruments together on the piano, then I can run each track to the computer to do my mix down. And that's what we'll do next. Now I'm ready to go to the computer and start putting in each individual track. I will show you that the first track that I'm going to put in on the computer is actually track 1. That's how the software that I use, it starts out with the first track and then it goes on from there. Okay, this track 1, and you can see the far right upper right corner is it says record, and that's what I'm going to give it the cue to record, and then I'll start the recording. You can see as the bar moves across the screen, it's creating a wave. There's 2 sets of waves. The bottom wave in this track is in all the tracks actually, the bottom wave is represents the right side of the stereo, and the top one represents the left. Now that I've finished track 1, I can bring the bass and snare and toms in. Now let's bring in the snare and the kick drum and the toms. I've let the 2 tracks, the percussion track, which is on the top track, track 1, and the kick and snare and toms are on the next track, which is track 2. I've got those labeled. Now I'm ready to put in the bass guitar. Okay, I finished putting all of the instruments, feeding them to the computer for mix down, and I've already taken the time to mix it down to my liking. And here is a view of the different instruments on their different tracks. I've added low strings and high strings. There is a blowpipe. It's a kind of a flute sounding instrument, and of course the piano, and then everything below that are percussive type, like I've got wind chimes and suspended cymbal and those kinds of things. Well, I just want to thank you for indulging me in this. This is something that I do and have been doing it for a long time. Thank you for watching. I'm going to let you enjoy the finished product of this song now.